We use electricity for so much in our lives that the way that we're generating all this electricity, primarily through oil, coal, and natural gas, is really harming our environment. It's destroying our planet. Luckily, there is a solution. As according to McInnes in Nuclear Power Can Fight Global Warming, nuclear power is the cheapest way to produce electricity while also reducing the amount of carbon that we are putting into the environment. However, despite this, many people are still worried about nuclear power. There are still many myths around nuclear power. One of which is that nuclear power is too dangerous for us to use. When people say this, they're usually thinking of Chernobyl, pictured here, or the 3 Mile Island incident. Many people are also concerned with radioactivity, and they think that nuclear power damages our environment. Both of these are also untrue. And finally, many people are worried about the economics of nuclear energy. They're worried that we can't afford to use it and that it's not a renewable resource. But first, let's tackle the idea that nuclear power is too dangerous for us to use. According to Hodgson in Nuclear Power and in the Energy Crisis, Chernobyl was a very tragic accident, but it was a result of operator irresponsibility. The Chernobyl reactor was designed very poorly, and the people who were running the reactor intentionally disabled the security systems and then disobeyed their instructions for how to run the reactor properly. That is why there was such a severe meltdown at Chernobyl. 3 Mile Island is also quite famous, and this here is a picture of the 3 Mile Island reactor. However, nobody was injured and nobody was killed as a result of the 3 Mile Island incident. It was just a very, very expensive cleanup. In fact, both of these incidents have led to many of the safety standards that we use today, and these same safety standards help prevent accidents like this in the future. Hodgson also points out that from 1969 to 1986, there have been 187 mining disasters, 334 oil well fires, 9 dam bursts, and 1 severe nuclear accident at Chernobyl. As he's pointing out, the other energy sources that we are considering using also have their own risks associated with them, and nuclear power is not the only dangerous energy source by any means. According to Williams in Nuclear Power is the Best Way to Address Climate Change, as well as Salazar in Nuclear Power is a Viable Source of Renewable Energy, the newer technologies and safety standards of today help make it so that the risks associated with nuclear energy are nil. There are very little risks to operating nuclear power plants compared to the power plants of our past. The non-renewables that we're using has also resulted in many deaths. Some would argue that things like coal and natural gas have resulted in more deaths than nuclear power plants have. You have to remember the amount of damage that can be caused by a dam bursting, as this picture from Brazil in 2015 shows. You will also probably remember the BP oil spill from not too long ago, and all of the devastation that caused. Second, let's explore the idea that nuclear power hurts the environment and that it is too radioactive for us to use. According to the Nuclear Energy Institute, in their article, Nuclear Power is Safe and Efficient for the Environment, those who live closest to nuclear power plants receive only 1 millirem of radiation a year. To put that into perspective, this chart from Hui and Marion in their article, Are Cell Phones Safe? How Wireless Devices Compare to Other Sources of Radiation, shows us that a chest x-ray gives you about 10 millirems of radiation. That means that one standard chest x-ray from your doctor gives you the same amount of radiation as living near a nuclear power plant for about a decade. The bottom line is, nuclear power plants are not nearly as radioactive as you would think. In fact, Scholes, Smith, and Makajani in Nuclear Power, both sides, point out that nuclear power plants do not give off any greenhouse gas emissions like sulfur and carbon. The only thing that they give off is a very, very small amount of radiation, not enough to harm anyone near the power plant or the environment, as well as steam, as this picture shows, coming from the turbines that are actually producing the electricity. Finally, there are many who believe we cannot afford to use nuclear power. They argue that nuclear power is not a renewable resource, that we don't have a place to store our nuclear waste, and that we should be using renewables like wind and solar. However, as Schwartz and Cochrane explain in their article, Renaissance or Requiem, is nuclear energy cost-effective in a post-Fukushima world, as well as McInnes from earlier, there is tons of uranium for us to use in the environment. And even if we do start to run out of uranium to fuel our reactors, McInnes explains that alternate sources like thorium are so enormous so as to be essentially unlimited. Sources of thorium have the potential to last us hundreds, if not thousands of years if we start to run out of uranium. And if we find a place to put all of our nuclear waste, it will no longer be an issue to decide where to put it. As of right now, we end up storing it in the reactors because we haven't decided on a place to keep it all. But if we decide to pursue nuclear energy, we will finally be able to construct a place to safely store the waste while it loses its radioactivity. According to the World Nuclear Association, in their article, Nuclear Power Reactors, our older reactors are designed to last up to 40 years. And the newer models, the models that we would be constructing today, can last anywhere from 50 to 60 years. This means that even though nuclear power plants are more expensive to build than any other power plant, the fact that they last so long, produce so much energy, and cost so little to maintain and upkeep means that these very high initial costs can be spread out over the very long lifespan of the reactor. However, despite all of this, many people still argue that renewable sources of energy should be our only option. And I can understand that. Renewable sources of energy are very attractive sources of energy. However, there is a big problem with them, as Schwarz and Carpet explained. Renewable resources simply cannot cover our energy needs without massive economic costs. They're not efficient enough to produce the immense amounts of energy that we need to power our society. They are simply not a viable option when it comes to powering our entire society and the entire world. Finally, and in conclusion, as well as contrary to popular belief, nuclear power is safe. It is not radioactive or dangerous to the environment, and it is an economically viable energy source. Today, we are faced with an energy crisis, one that we should be solving with nuclear energy. So write your congressman and do your part to ensure that we can use nuclear energy in the future. Because if we do adopt nuclear energy and improve upon it and refine upon it like human ingenuity will, it has the potential to take us into the stars and beyond.